This is a 3-minute message brought to you by Redemption Church, Delray Beach.
Well, as we come to the end of Nehemiah, we see something very common happen at the end of this book. It's the Israelites. They drifted away from God. They rebelled against God. They went from faith and trusting God and rejoicing and having the joy of the Lord to unbelief and doing their own thing. The people drifted. They knew what was right. They had seen God move and build the wall and work on their behalf, and they even rejoiced over this, but they went from belief to unbelief, trust to not trusting, and they just ended up falling into sin. And the ways that this happened, they took on the flesh and the ways of the world, knowing that they should have been following God, but didn't happen. Tobiah moved into the house of the Lord and they allowed it. The portion of the Levites were not given. They simply worked on the Sabbath. And then they married women from another nation. All things that they knew they shouldn't have done, but yet, rather than trusting God, they trusted their own flesh and drifted away from God's ways. They did this all while Nehemiah was gone. And Nehemiah, when he came back, he saw these things happen and it broke his heart, and he reformed things. He held them accountable and got them back on track and encouraged them to follow after God. And this is a hard thing to do. In verse 17, Nehemiah said this, "Then I confronted the nobles of Judah." Confrontation, accountability, conflict. Nehemiah was a good friend, a good enough friend to confront them in love, speak the truth in love, say that they had to follow God's ways and encourage them to do that. And see, as much as I want to look down on the Israelites for their drift, for their sin, I'm no better. And neither are you, because we all drift. And Hebrews 2:1 tells us that, "Therefore we must pay close attention to what we have heard, lest we drift away from it." See, I've found that I need people in my life to help me be accountable, to encourage me to walk by faith and not by sight, to live for the things of God. And Hebrews continues to go on in chapter 10, verse 24 and 25. It says that we should not neglect gathering together, because when we do that, we can actually encourage one another to follow after God. And so my prayer is for me and for you is that we would stay focused, that we would do the task and run the race that God has called us to, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the author and perfecter of our faith. That it wouldn't just be a to-do list and condemnation, but there is no condemnation in Jesus. We can always turn to Him. And when we hold one another accountable, pointing one another to Jesus, we can repent, we can turn to Him, and we can stay focused. And so may we continue to keep our eyes on the Lord. May we continue to have fellowship and hold one another accountable, speaking the truth in love. And may we enjoy God's goodness, knowing that even when we drift, He takes us back just as we are. Just as the Israelites turned to God, we're able to turn to God and find His faithfulness for our lives.